I haven't been reconsidering this for quite some while. I got pushed by police into the awareness that civil rights are obviously no longer existing to the fullest extent here in Melbourne. Even though I wasn't part of the City Square occupation, on the afternoon when the eviction happened, police indiscriminately acted against everyone who was on Swanston Street, which gave me the conviction that it's about time to stand up against this very big illusion that we live in a world where the rule of law counts, and where those people representing the law obviously represented something I can't agree with, and I don't feel safe as a citizen. So for me, it's an honest attempt to find people who are willing to find out new structures, how to organize society and organize being together and caring and sharing the wealth of this planet. And the kind of reception that I perceived while I was getting more in contact with the actual occupation made me convinced that there are people who take it serious to try out to construct living together without the need of leadership, or rather without the need of structural leadership. And since then it turned out to be more and more fun and had a very addictive character, and basically gives me the impression that my life has more meaning again. I'm convinced that our planet offers an abundance of resources, and humanity in its history has managed to accumulate so much knowledge what to do with these resources that we have reached as mankind the state, at least since say the moon landing. We have the ability to feed and shelter every human being on this planet. And I'm convinced that this is the state, at least for the last 20 years of my life. And the occupation seems to be the first attempt to transform this information that we have more than enough for everyone into the foundation of a new society which allows every human to live up to its potential, instead of punishing everyone for being born out of the wrong womb with the wrong socio-economic circumstances. In particular, I think the way that society is organized is not working out. It's not based on scientific knowledge. It's rather based on the idea that it's better for society when a chosen minority will set out the strategies for the rest of humanity. And in the 21st century, this led to a situation where Australia fights, I think, still 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, while on the same time treats the people trying to escape from these situations in a very abhorrent way. There are more things wrong in society than I would like to count on, but they all have one thing in common. They lead from the idea that anything which is organized has to be organized hierarchically. And this means you have a high responsibility in the leading positions, but often you don't have the knowledge to play your role properly if you acquired this position on top of a hierarchy. And the experiences I made so far with organizing affairs in a horizontal matter show that this is a very productive way of interaction. And even though we are, as occupation, highly limited in the amount of resources available and the amount of people wanting to physically and personally contribute, the features, the services that came out of the occupation in a short time are very staggering, I think. I stepped by the City Square occupation a couple of times before the 21st, and I was definitely thinking about spending more time there. On the morning of the 21st, I was already aware of the Twitter feed, and via the Twitter feed I found out that the eviction was happening. What I didn't realize was that all the protesters were kettled on Swanston Street, and that the police took the whole day to herd people through the streets. So when I had to go via Swanston Street from State Library to Flinders Street, I bumped into this black wall of police that indiscriminately thought they have the right to tell anybody who was present at the moment where they can and cannot go. I think I saw some of the more violent pictures a little bit later on YouTube, and I felt quite uneasy, because my spontaneous reaction when I got pushed around by the police was to get very upset and get very abusive towards the police. And after I saw how they acted to other people who were as little involved with the occupation like I was, I realized that I was lucky to meet the police at a time when they weren't that prone to violence, because I gave them enough evidence or enough reason to just beat the living shit out of me or use all of their weaponry. So I heard a lot of stories, especially later after I joined First Aid and the care team, when I helped some people to get over the traumatic experiences, and it was very shocking to notice how many illusions were shattered on this day. One of the girls that shared her story with me described the situation like, oh, I saw a violent mob coming towards me, and this would be a situation where I would call the cops, but it was the cops coming, and I could still feel her cognitive dissonance all weeks after the actual events happened. And so what has happened on this 21st of October was an event which has significance on many layers. There is a layer of society. It's an evidence that civil rights are trampled with feet or hit down with batons if required. It's an evidence that a lot of people try out this idea to change a violent society by being determinantly non-violent, and it was a sign that we have to learn to deal with all the emotions that are involved with either executing violence, witnessing violence, or being the victim of it. And it became very obvious that a lot of the ideas around violence are part of the everyday culture. And that's why the occupation is so important, because this is an attempt to create a different culture which very consciously avoids violence as a solution for problems. When we learn to live as community again, and when we learn to respect each other and share the wealth of the planet, all of us can have a life in luxury which exceeds probably the wildest dreams of those people who live a normal life. And what we call a normal life nowadays will soon turn to probably more of the problems we see in Europe and America. So although the shit hasn't hit the fan in Australia too hard, the opportunity to create something beautiful, wonderful, and unseen in history is there, and we wait for everybody to join, because this revolution won't be over unless everybody takes part.